So we look at ag altogether. Last year they were about $24 million. And so this year we were able to raise that to about $28 million. And this is on the appropriated side.
Right.
If we look at their total expenditure, it's about $49 million. And that's where there are other agency funds that may flow in for services.
Right.
Federal money, federal grants,
right,
those
yeah.
things come in. And so out of a $49 million agency, we're putting about $28 million into it. And these are just some of the new expenditures we did this last year.
All right, hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode of Budget Breakdown. It's a show that we film here from the state capitol, from the office of the Appropriations Chair, Senator Roger Thompson. Senator, thank you so much for having us back again and explaining another part of the budget for us.
Well, thank you very much, Caden. It's always good to be with you.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, last night I was in Enid, Oklahoma, and just talking about the budget, meeting with the PLAC group, and they were telling me they open every meeting with budget breakdown, and so they're learning more about the budget.
There we go.
Senator Peterson's area does a great job representing the state.
There we go.
But I was happy to be in Enid, Oklahoma last night.
Love it.
And what I really enjoy is people wanting to learn more about the overall budget.
That's right.
And by the budget breakdown, not only are we helping people out throughout the state, but also some of our members who are also learning.
I love that.
So I'm excited about being here today.
That's exactly why we're here. That's exactly why we're doing this show, to help explain part of the budget. And dissect it, break it down into consumable parts for people to understand the whole state budget picture in kind of an understandable way, don't you think?
Exactly.
Love it.
Exactly.
Okay, well, to go on to what we have today, we're going to be talking about agriculture today. If you've been watching the last few videos, we've been breaking down new investments that the legislature has made into different state agencies. So I guess without further ado, I'll kind of turn it over to you and let you explain some of the agriculture investments to us.
Oh, absolutely. And it's really neat. And before we get into ag, we want to talk about just the budget process.
Right.
And according to the Oklahoma Constitution, Article 5, the legislature is charged with writing the budget for the state.
Right.
We know all new revenue has to begin over in the House. Our new taxes increases have to begin in the House. And but the reason for that is this is the people's budget. And so the people come to the legislature with their needs, our subcommittees work on those needs, and then they rise to the budget, the general revenue process.
Right.
And when we talk about agriculture, there's nothing more relevant than that process.
Right.
And because if you're going to notice some of the new investments that we've had is wildlife mitigation and wildlife control. And if we get out in rural Oklahoma, we've got a feral hog problem that is continuing.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, we passed legislation where you can shoot them from helicopters, you can trap them at night. We're doing everything we can. They're tearing up hundreds and thousands of acres of farmland.
Yeah.
It's devastating. The Muskogee Creek Nation in my area is working with the Department of Agriculture trying to mitigate this problem. Well, it takes money. So we wanted to add some more money to that this year, $200,000 on mitigation. Wildlife control, we added $500,000. Just simply, we can address this problem.
Love that.
And it is a huge problem. We've also, and I didn't list on the board, we've invested more money in the vets. And because a lot of the hogs that are brought in need to go through a vet to make sure they don't have the diseases or things. And so there's a lot of problems that we're having in wildlife. And so when we start talking about the budget process, the people are coming to the legislature and said, we need money in these areas. And so for rural Oklahoma, this is from the people to the legislature, and now we see it in the GR. The other areas that we deal with in rural Oklahoma, of course, is healthy food. We added $500,000 to that. We established the fund just a few years ago, and this is one of the first investments that we've had money on the state area to put into the fund.
Okay.
And so if it gets into a food desert, we want people to be fed. The agriculture can help them to do it. So the money runs through the Department of Agriculture into the food desert.
Absolutely.
Which is a great thing.
Great.
On the OSU Ag Extension, again, if you get out and you're working with our farmers, we're working in small communities, we're working with 4-H.
Right.
We did a number of things in rural Oklahoma. That OSU Ag is just really indispensable. And so we must have that funding. And so today then we have a total now of about $4 million that we are able to put into OSU Ag Extension.
That's great.
Absolutely.
I think this is something, I'm so glad that we're breaking this topic down today, because so many times when you live in the city, it's almost sometimes hard to relate to how important this stuff really is. You're a rural legislator.
Absolutely.
You know this world way better than I do. So I'm just glad we're going through it to further explain the absolute importance that this stuff plays, because a lot of times it's overlooked. But if you take this stuff away, people are going to notice very quickly, right?
Well, absolutely. I mean, you're in Oklahoma City, and you urban young fellas.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
you start talking about food deserts, talking about some of those things, then you're not going to see that as much as what we're going to have in rural Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And when we talk about a feral hog problem, you're not having that in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
We're having that in McIntosh County, Old Fusky County, Muskogee County. I mean, it's hitting all of our rural hard.
Wow.
And the citizens in rural Oklahoma are part of the state of Oklahoma, and we must address their needs. And the other area is in the rural fire department operational grants. Now, we keep in mind that rural fire departments, and the majority of those are volunteers. They volunteer their money, they volunteer their time, they work accidents on the highway, they're fighting forest fires, they operate some emergency care, and they do this most of the time out of their own pocket. I'm so impressed with our rural fire departments, and you talk about first responders. These are men and women who put it on the line every day, using their own time, their own talent, and many times their own money.
Love it.
And so through the forestry department, agriculture, we're able to get some equipment. Well, this year we were able to add $600,000 to rural grants. And so we began to look at the total grant program is about $4 million. Well, when you look at 77 counties, and you look at a lot of rural counties that are out here, they're depending on those grants to be able to operate those fire departments. Now, what that means to the people, if your house catches on fire, there's going to be somebody there try to fight the fire. But it also impacts your insurance rates, because if you don't have a fire department in your area, your insurance is going to shoot through the roof. And so this helps a number of people in rural Oklahoma. And so we were very happy this year to put an additional $600,000 into rural fire departments. And again, if you live in Oklahoma City or Tulsa or Moore or Norman, you have a city fire department. You're taken care of. You don't think about the rural areas and what they need. And many of the urban fire departments, they have paid firemen, which are great. We appreciate all first responders. We appreciate everything they're doing. But the rural fire departments needed some attention this last year, and we were able to get it to them.
I'm so glad you bring this up. And specifically, I'm glad you bring up all the indirect impacts that this $600,000 or this $4 million grant has for these small communities all over the place. One, just to help them operate these volunteer firefighter forces. But two, things like it impacting insurance rates and things like that. Like that's an indirect positive impact that this investment has immediately for just everybody out in rural areas of Oklahoma. So thank you so much for walking us through
Absolutely. That. And you're over in Muskogee County, you're down around Porham Landing, and you go by their rural fire department. It's an amazing group of people who is working, and they're out in the middle of nowhere. But the people who have homes in that area, the people who need them, they are their only lifeline. And so we appreciate everything that they do. The other area we're able to do rural flood control dams, and we're able to put $1.5 million into it. A lot of flooding. If you're keeping up with the news, not flooding like they had in Houston this last weekend, or 43 inches of rain in about 72 hours. But if we don't control the water, it's not only going to damage the crops, it's going to flood, it's going to do a lot of things. And so the flood control dams are very important. We're able to add $1.5 million. I want to just kind of talk shortly about the Conservation District. Trey Lamb does a great job. We have great conservation districts working, and they work in partnership with ag and with the forestry all of the time, making sure this is taken care of. We had problems with our water supply a number of years ago in Oklahoma, and how it operated, not only in the Great Depression days, but since those days, conservation has been super involved, and now agriculture is also involved, adding $1.5 million to our rural dam control. So I think it's been a good thing. So we look at ag altogether. Last year, they were about $24 million. And so this year, we were able to raise that to about $28 million. And this is on the appropriated side. If we look at their total expenditure, it's about $49 million, and that's where there are other agency funds that may flow in for services, federal money, federal grants, those things come in. And so out of a $49 million agency, we're putting about $28 million into it. And these are just some of the new expenditures we did this last year.
Love it. I want to go back. These two things, these two bottom things, I really want to highlight these two things because they're so important, especially in the past year with how many different wildfires have been going through the country, how much flooding has been going through the country.
Absolutely.
These investments directly impact lives.
That's right.
So that's why these investments, these things that the legislature is able to help out with are just absolutely crucial for those people living in rural Oklahoma.
Well, and exactly, and like I said, it becomes the people's budget, and that's the reason our Constitution with Article 5 is that the people in rural Oklahoma begin to say, we need more help here, we need more flood control dams, and so help us be able to do that. So we're listening to the people. We put the people's requests through our subcommittee process, to make sure it's going to fit. We deal with the agencies and say, okay, what kind of money can we give and what bang for the buck are we going to get on it? So like this last session, when I'm dealing with rural fire departments, I actually brought our rural fire department people into this same conference room.
Okay.
From throughout my district. We brought in the Secretary of Agriculture, Blaine Arthur, who sat in this same room. We brought in forestry in this same room. We said, okay, here's our problem. How do we get from this problem to a fix on the other side?
Yes.
And it's out of that meeting that we said we could add $600,000 in the rural fire department grants that would make a difference. And so we listened to the people, we added it to the budget, and that's being used.
Gotcha.
And I'm excited about that.
Love it. Senator, thank you so much for walking us through, again, just how important agriculture is, especially for our state. But just these investments have not only, I mentioned the direct impact on rural people living in rural areas, but city folk like me have a direct impact, indirect impact on people like me who absolutely depend on agriculture supplying goods and for the free market to flow. So
absolutely. Hey, I appreciate you stopping by. Before you leave today, was in Enid last night, as I said. Had some more questions on the COLA. You know, this last year the House sent over a bill with title off, and for us to work on giving a cost of living adjustment to all of our different pension systems, teachers. Well, some of those were fire departments, policemen, judges, and so the overall cost was over $800 million. Title off. Well, we want to follow the law on the Senate side, and so we want to examine that and do an actuarial study. And that's what the law tells us to do. So
I was going to say, which is required.
That's right. So it came out of committee. And an actuarial study is going on now. Senator Paxton, Senator Quinn are doing great work on that. And so for those that are listening, want to say we have not forgotten about the COLA. We're just simply doing what the law instructed us to do. And we will be addressing it whenever we get back in session in February.
That's awesome. Awesome. Any other questions that you received last night you want to update us on? I mean, we talked about agriculture. We can get into pensions. Any other things you want to bring up?
You know, one of the neat things with the group last night, they asked some very direct questions. They were wanting to learn about the budget. And sometimes we get sidetracked into believing that whether it's just education or whether it's health care, that's all there is to the budget. And because of Article 10 in the Constitution that we've got to have a balanced budget, we have a number of areas we need to fund. We've been looking at some of them even today. These are very, very important areas that must be funded. And so if I'm able to travel around the state and talk to different groups about the budget, they begin to get somewhat of a broader understanding. They already have some, but a broader understanding of the responsibility of the legislature and how we must fund all of those areas on limited funds with a constitutionally balanced budget requirement.
Perfect. Senator, thank you so much for all your hard work, for explaining this to us each week on Budget Breakdown, but also for traveling around the state. Just to give you guys some insight, this guy, I don't think he sleeps. He literally travels the state all week, and then you're here whenever you're not traveling the state, meeting with constituents, and just talking to people about what is going on with our state budget. So great work, and beyond that, do you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, thank you very much.
Love it.
It's taxpayer money.
Love it.
They need to know where it's being spent.
Absolutely.
Thanks for stopping by.
Guys, thank you so much for listening to. This is a very important show here that we put together, just breaking down the budget. And I hope you've been able to learn a little bit specifically about agriculture this week. If you do have questions on anything we talked about on this episode or previous episodes, feel free to comment down below this video, and we'll be sure to get you any more information that you need. So beyond that, see you there.
Very good.
Right on. Awesome.
See you next week.
Guys, thank you so much. We'll see you next week. Bye.